In 1990, Daniel Kahneman, Jack Netsch, and Richard Thaler walked into a university classroom with a box of coffee mugs and accidentally dismantled a foundational assumption of economic theory. They divided the students into two groups at random. One group received a mug, a simple, plain, university-branded coffee mug worth approximately $6 at the campus bookstore. The other group received nothing. Then they created a market. The students with mugs were asked the minimum price they would accept to sell their mug. The students without mugs were asked the maximum price they would pay to buy one. Classical economics makes a clear prediction about what should happen. The mug has a market value. Rational agents on both sides should converge on roughly the same number. Some sellers might price slightly higher, some buyers slightly lower, but the gap should be small and the market should clear efficiently. The gap was not small. The sellers demanded a median price of $7.12. The buyers offered a median price of $2.87. The people who owned the mug valued it nearly 2.5 times more than the people who did not. The mug was identical. The students were identical. Randomly assigned, same university, same classroom, same morning. The only difference was possession. The moment a person held the mug in their hands, it became worth dramatically more to them than to anyone else in the room. Kahneman, Netsch, and Thaler called this the endowment effect, the tendency for people to value something more highly simply because they own it. The act of ownership itself, independent of any change in the object, inflates its perceived worth. This is not how markets are supposed to work. The entire architecture of classical economics rests on the assumption that a person's willingness to pay for something and their willingness to accept payment to give it up should be approximately equal. If you would pay $5 for a mug, you should be willing to sell the same mug for roughly $5. The object has a value. The value is the value. Ownership should not change it. But ownership does change it, dramatically, consistently, across every culture, every product category, and every experimental context in which the effect has been tested. The mug experiment has been replicated with chocolate bars, pens, lottery tickets, bottles of wine, and concert tickets. The ratio varies, but the direction never does. Owners demand more than buyers will pay, typically by a factor of 2 to 3. The gap is not a rounding error. It is a chasm. To understand why, you need to look at the machinery beneath the effect, and that machinery is loss aversion, the same asymmetry between losses and gains that Kahneman and Tversky identified in their 1979 prospect theory. When you own something, selling it is coded by your brain as a loss. When you do not own something, buying it is coded as a gain. And because losses hurt roughly twice as much as equivalent gains feel good, the owner demands a price that compensates for the pain of losing the object, not just the market value of the object itself. The seller is not pricing the mug. They are pricing the pain of giving it up. This has consequences that ripple across the entire economy, from your cluttered garage to the most sophisticated financial markets on the planet. Walk into any house where a family has lived for 20 years and open the garage. Boxes of old clothes that no longer fit anyone. Kitchen appliances used once and abandoned. Children's toys from a decade ago. Exercise equipment draped with laundry. Every object was once purchased for a few dollars, and every object is now valued by its owner at several times what any buyer would pay. A woman holds up a blouse she bought 8 years ago, wore twice, and has not touched since. A rational assessment of its value is close to zero. It is out of style, slightly faded, and occupies space that costs money in a mortgage-financed house. At a yard sale, it might fetch $1. but she cannot bring herself to part with it. It is hers. She remembers buying it. She remembers the occasion she wore it. The blouse has become entangled with her identity and her history, and selling it for $1, or worse, donating it for nothing, feels like accepting that the original purchase was a waste. The endowment effect has fused with the sunk cost fallacy, and together they have turned her garage into a museum of things she does not use but cannot release. The self-storage industry in the United States generates over $39 billion in annual revenue, more than the motion picture industry. There are over 50,000 storage facilities in the country, more than the combined number of McDonald's, Starbucks, and Subway locations. Most of these facilities are filled with objects that their owners will never use again, but cannot bring themselves to discard. The monthly rental fee is, in economic terms, the ongoing cost of the endowment effect, the premium people pay to avoid the pain of letting go of things they own but do not need. The real estate market amplifies the endowment effect to the scale of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Every study of home pricing confirms the same pattern. Sellers systematically overprice their homes relative to market value, not because they are greedy, but because the house is theirs. They raised their children in that kitchen. They painted that bedroom wall. They remember the afternoon they planted the tree in the backyard. The house is not a financial asset to them. It is a container for decades of identity. And the price they set reflects not the market value of the structure, but the psychological cost of surrendering the life they built inside it. Buyers, who have no such attachment, see a house with a leaky roof and an outdated kitchen. The gap between the seller's price and the buyer's offer is the endowment effect, measured in bricks and mortar. The used car market is warped by the same force. A seller lists their car for $12,000. They have maintained it carefully, washed it every weekend, replaced the brake pads on schedule. To them, this is not just a vehicle. It is a trusted companion they have driven for 5 years. The Kelley Blue Book value is $9,000. The seller genuinely cannot understand why no one is offering $12,000. They are not lying about the car's condition. They are accurately reporting their felt experience of the car's value, which includes the endowment premium that no buyer shares. The technology industry has built some of its most profitable strategies around deliberately triggering the endowment effect. The 30-day free trial is not generosity. It is a calculated maneuver to transfer psychological ownership before any money changes hands. A streaming service, a software platform, a meal kit delivery. Each one offers you a free period during which you use the product, integrate it into your routine, build playlists, customize settings, accumulate history. By day 28, canceling does not feel like declining a purchase you never made. It feels like losing something you already have. The free trial has converted you from a potential buyer evaluating a gain into a current owner contemplating a loss. And losses, as we know, hurt twice as much. Conversion rates from free trials to paid subscriptions are dramatically higher than direct purchase rates for the same products. The free trial does not demonstrate value. It manufactures ownership. The automotive industry uses test drives for the same purpose. A car salesperson does not let you test drive a vehicle because they want you to evaluate its handling. They want you to sit in the driver's seat, adjust the mirrors, feel the steering wheel under your hands, hear your music through the speakers. For 20 minutes, the car is yours. You are driving it through your neighborhood, imagining it in your driveway, picturing yourself behind that wheel every morning. When you return to the dealership and hand back the keys, You are not declining to purchase a car you never owned. You are giving back a car you already drove. The endowment effect fires. The salesperson knows it. Online retail has engineered a digital version of the same trigger. Shopping carts that save your items for days. Wish lists that let you collect products. The phrase, "Your item is waiting for you," in a follow-up email. Each of these features is designed to create a feeling of pre-ownership, the sense that the object is already yours, sitting in a virtual space with your name on it, waiting to be claimed. Amazon's one-click purchasing removes the friction that might give your rational brain time to intervene between the moment of felt ownership and the moment of payment. The gap between "I want this" and "I bought this" has been compressed to a fraction of a second. Not enough time for the prefrontal cortex to override the endowment effect. The ticket resale market provides one of the cleanest measurements of the endowment effect in the wild. A study by Ziv Carmon and colleagues at Duke University examined students who had won tickets to a major basketball game through a lottery. Some students won tickets. Others entered the same lottery and lost. The students who won tickets were asked the minimum price they would accept to sell them. The students who lost were asked the maximum they would pay. Both groups had invested the same effort. Both wanted to attend the same game. The only difference was possession. The median selling price was $2,400. The median buying price was $175. The owners valued the ticket roughly 14 times more than the non-owners. Not twice, not 3 times, 14 times. The ticket had not changed. The game had not changed. The students had not changed. Ownership alone had multiplied the perceived value by a factor that makes rational market theory essentially meaningless. Negotiations are systematically distorted by the endowment effect in ways that cause deals to collapse over gaps that should be trivially small. A business owner building a company for 15 years receives an acquisition offer. The buyer has done extensive due diligence and values the company at $8 million, a fair price by every financial metric. The owner demands $14 million. The owner is not being deceptive. They genuinely believe the company is worth $14 million because they built it, because they know every client relationship and every process improvement and every late night that went into its growth. The company is an extension of their identity. Selling it at $8 million feels like the market is declaring that 15 years of their life were worth half of what they know them to be. The buyer sees a business with specific revenue, specific margins, and specific growth projections. The gap between 8 and 14 million is the endowment effect operating at the scale of someone's entire professional life. This is why so many acquisition negotiations fail, not because the parties disagree about the numbers, but because the seller's felt value includes an endowment premium that no spreadsheet captures and no buyer will pay. The endowment effect has implications for public policy that most citizens never consider. Once a government benefit is established, removing it becomes politically almost impossible. Not because the benefit is necessarily effective, but because the recipients now own it. A tax deduction for mortgage interest, a subsidy for a specific industry, a program that sends a monthly check. Each one, once received, is coded by the beneficiary as theirs. Removing it is not experienced as ending a policy. It is experienced as taking something away from me. The endowment effect transforms every government program into a permanent fixture, regardless of whether it still serves its original purpose. This is why politicians describe spending cuts as reforms and tax increases as adjustments. Every euphemism is an attempt to disguise the loss that would trigger the endowment-fueled backlash. The psychology of digital ownership has introduced new dimensions the original researchers never anticipated. People develop endowment attachments to things that do not physically exist: social media accounts with accumulated followers, video game characters with accumulated equipment, email addresses they have used for decades. When a platform threatens to delete an inactive account, the response is often panic disproportionate to any practical consequence. The account may not have been used in years, but it is theirs. The followers, the posts, the history, all of it is coded as owned, and the threat of deletion activates the same loss aversion that Kahneman measured with a $6 coffee mug. Gamers who have spent hundreds of hours building a character will reject real money offers for the account that far exceed the hourly wage they could have earned during those hours. The character is not a financial asset. It is an endowed possession, and the selling price must compensate not just for the time invested, but for the pain of losing something that has become part of their identity. Romantic relationships are shaped by the endowment effect in ways that mirror the business acquisition problem. People in long-term relationships consistently overvalue the relationship relative to outside observers, not because they are wrong about its quality, but because it is theirs. They built it. They invested in it. It contains their history. This can be healthy. The endowment effect contributes to commitment and stability. But it can also trap people in relationships that are objectively harmful, because the pain of losing what they have built feels worse than the ongoing cost of staying. The endowment premium on a 10-year relationship can be enormous, and it operates independently of whether the relationship is actually making them happy. So, how do you counteract a bias that activates the moment something enters your possession? The first defense is the reversibility test. Before acquiring anything, a product, a subscription, a commitment, ask yourself, if I already owned this and someone offered to buy it from me at the price I am about to pay, would I sell? If the answer is yes, the object is not worth the price to you. You are about to overpay for something that will become inflated in your mind the moment you own it. The second defense is to practice deliberate divestment. Regularly go through your possessions and ask, for each one, if I did not own this, would I buy it today at its current market value? If the answer is no, you are paying the endowment tax, storing, maintaining, insuring, or simply worrying about something whose value exists only because you already have it. The third defense is to recognize when companies are manufacturing the endowment effect before you have spent a dollar. The free trial, the test drive, the wish list, the saved cart, the "your item is waiting" email. Each one is designed to make you feel like an owner before you are a buyer. Name the technique, and it loses half its power. The endowment effect is not a flaw to be ashamed of. It is the same psychological machinery that makes you value your friendships, protect your family, and cherish the places where you have built your life. Without it, we would be cold calculators, indifferent to what we have, perpetually willing to trade everything for a marginal upgrade. But in a consumer economy designed to exploit this attachment, to manufacture ownership before purchase, to make letting go feel like losing, to convert every transaction into a possession you cannot bear to release, the endowment effect becomes a trap. The mug in Kahneman's experiment was worth $6. The moment a student held it, it became worth $7. The difference is $1, but multiplied across every object you own, every subscription you maintain, every relationship you cling to, every career you refuse to leave, every belief you cannot release. That $1 becomes the invisible tax you pay on everything in your life. Not for the value of what you have, for the pain of imagining it gone.